Hello, hello, everybody. It's XP Billionaires time, and we have got some rage-inducing content for you today. I'm really excited about getting angry. I don't know why that is, but I don't know. Let it just go with it, I guess. So, to my left and right, metaphorically, I have Irene and Sky. Irene, how are you today?
I'm good. I'm good. I just put down the Blood-Starved Beast in Bloodborne with the build that I am less familiar with, so that's a lot of fun.
Oh, awesome. It's nice. You've been putting a lot of that out on Twitter too. You seem to be making a
Yeah,
lot of use of that video record option there.
I am. Unfortunately, I couldn't get Twitter's rules basically meant that I couldn't get the entire Blood-Starved Beast fight up because it was like 30 seconds too long,
Okay.
just a touch. So I decided to post the tail end because that was the more tense part. I'll see if I can get the first part up as well, but it just requires a little bit more editing on my part. But yeah, I'm actually kind of enjoying the strength arcane build because I just get to smash things with a giant hammer.
That's always fun.
Pretty cathartic when you charge attack and they literally go crashing into the ground and don't get up again.
Yeah, definitely. All right, we and Sky, how are you doing today?
I'm okay. I've been mostly doing the Sims and Stardew Valley lately. For those who don't know, I suffer from a bit of chronic pain, so it's been bad lately, so nice relaxing kind of games have been more my speed right now.
No, that's fantastic. As for me, I've mostly just been playing the new Dragon Ball Heroes game on the Switch, which has so much content, way more than I thought there was going to be. And they had plans for more content down the road. Whether or not that's going to be paid or free, we'll wait and see. Knowing Bandai, there'll probably be some money attached to it, but there's a lot planned, so I can't imagine all of it will be. So, but that's exciting. I've been plowing along in Trails of Cold Steel as well. I actually have had some trouble putting it down lately. We just got to the Nord Highlands, which has been a very, very visually nice area, a very open area, which is a little detrimental in some of the quests. I just went hunting these lost sheep, and they were everywhere, so far apart. It was so hard to find them. Such a pain in the butt. But other than that, I mean, the game has been really fun, and I still want to see where it goes. So that's exciting. All right, we've gotten the happy parts out of the way. So let's get to some rage. So we've all had the experience when a new title is announced and you're completely on board with it. It looks visually stunning, the gameplay looks solid, and everything else you're being shown about it before its release makes you want it more and more. The release date finally comes, you get it, and well, there's just something about it that sours the experience in ways that make you decide to put it down or even decide it's time to trade it in. It's really depressing, and it's also can be very upsetting in that when that happens. And it also makes you more leery when that developer hypes a new game. So, that being said, I figured we can go around and vent a little bit about the games that have done that to us. So, let's start this episode with Irene, because I know you are going to upset a lot of people. Let's just cut that wound right now.
All right, well, I have chosen for mine after careful consideration and much deep soul searching. Um, Sekiro Shadows Die Twice. You can turn it off now, you very enraged Dark Souls fans, who I'm sure are ravenously commenting how I need to get good, but whatever. Yeah.
Wow.
Sekiro is the frummiest FromSoft game to ever from. And I know that people are not going to shout furiously that it's not that hard, but like, hear me out. So, all FromSoft games are challenging by their nature. And I'm okay with that level of challenge. But I found that previous titles had mitigated that with more options for the player, specifically allowing the player to grind in order to level up and improve their stats, try a different path if they get stuck, And normally you've got like at least 2, maybe 3 more options for paths that you can take in one given area before you hit another boss. There's a lot of room to explore and make progress in other small ways, like unlocking shortcuts to the next boss so that you don't necessarily have to do it later. Like there's little ways that previous installments in From's library allow the player to progress, even if it's not necessarily super tangible in terms of level ups and improvements and new gear and all that fun shit, right? There's even a lot of weapon variations so that you can even try a different weapon or combat style or approach to a fight. For instance, like I could try, if I'm having trouble with my current build in Bloodborne, I can try on my axe, which swings differently than my Kirk hammer, which means that I have an option to sort of see if that is easier for me to disrupt the boss's flow or to, quickly get in, hit something, and get out. So while previous From games were always challenging, I always felt like there were tangible ways for me to make progress. And Sekiro does not have that. It is extremely linear, almost to a fault, because unless you progress in the way the game wants you to, you don't get to progress. And I want to love this game so badly because its combat is really fresh and it's gorgeous, and it's actually from trying to put the story in the game, which is a complaint I've had about other installments. So that's all really great. And also Samurai. I love Samurai. Neo is like my favorite Souls-like game of all time. But like, I really dislike the fact the only way to progress is how the developers basically narrowly define success. And I'm not saying like I wish I could like cheat my way out of the fight, but I wish there was more than one tactic or more than one approach to really make the fight like easier or a little bit more manageable for varying play styles.
No, sure, because people's gifts will be different, right? So, I mean, one person may be good at parrying, one person may not be, and there should be other options if they want to keep a larger audience.
And if they don't want to keep a larger audience, that's totally fine. That's From's prerogative. I'm just saying that for me, I found the fact that I wasn't able to like, well, what if I tried to approach the boss this way, or if I dodge in this direction? No, basically he hits 360 in that area, and there's no way to get around him. Also, the attack is too quick for me to actually effectively parry it. And I take damage anyway, and there's no getting stronger aside from like skill points, which debatably don't help that much because yeah, okay, I can pull off this new move, but even executing the move can be a challenge in the scope of the fight. And there's no alternative tactic, no alternative path, or like the path is very limited. So you can very easily find yourself sandwiched between two immovable objects. And as much as I really love this game, it can be just so unrewarding and frustrating at times in a way other From games are not. Like, I dislike the fact that I could really use a few more hit points in some of those fights, but there's no way for me to go out and get more hit points except kill more bosses. Like, all of my character improvements are locked behind these very challenging fights, which means I need to be able to overcome the challenge in order to get tougher so I can overcome more challenges. Like, I get that people saying now in New Game Plus that it's like trivial because they're so big that the fight isn't even hard anymore. And I get that, but the fact that there's no way for players to sort of get to a point where, yeah, this fight is now easier because I've got a few more hit points, which means I'm able to make a few more mistakes before the fight's just over. So, like, yeah, that's essentially my beef with Sekiro, is that as much as I want to love it, I think that perhaps they lean too hard in the very narrowly defined success. Like, this is how you succeed at this game. There is no other way to be successful. And it can be extremely frustrating for the player. it just feels like they leaned a little bit too hard into the difficulty mentality and less into what I think makes FromSoft games special, in that despite being difficult, the challenge is usually surmountable with enough patience. This time, there's no amount of patience that's going to get you where you need to go.
No, you're absolutely right. And this is something that I've brought up with a lot of from soft titles too. And I mentioned this especially when the whole concept of the difficulty and the get good mentality kicks in for me. It's that, your games are playing as an action RPG. If the RPG has a story or has, something that will bring you to a conclusion to the game, I want to experience that. But this is where I think the difficulty settings would be very helpful in that regard, because I feel that I want to progress the story. I want to see where it goes and I want to see where it ends. And I want to get there with my own hands. But if I'm having trouble, I want to be able to still continue to progress. And from what you've told me about Sekiro and from what I've seen from so many other people online is that, like, you're right, you do it one way or you don't get to see the end of the story. You don't get to see what the developers created. And that, I think that's a failing on the developers, to the extent where you make something that's so fantastic, but only a handful of people are going to experience it for themselves. I don't agree with that at all.
And like, honestly, they don't have to put in like an easy mode or accessibility options if they don't want to. I'm just saying that, like, one of the things I really liked, I'm gonna like pull us out in a really weird direction here, but Bayonetta. Bayonetta is a hard action RPG. However, when you start at normal and easy, like, the incoming attacks are slower. Hard mode isn't just necessarily the enemies do more damage, it's also they're faster. So I find the base difficulty for Sekiro, and normally I'm okay, but there are times where I don't have the concentration to really like get into it and get the rhythm down. But I find that it would have benefited from the ability to slow down the attacks a little bit, just so I can learn what to look for. Because right now they're happening so fast that there are times it's very difficult for me to tell what's happening. Which means there's no way for me to learn in order to get better. So, like, the skill threshold to even start learning is so high that it basically excludes a lot of people from playing. And if that's what they wanted to do, I mean, that's their prerogative. I'm just saying that I don't think it's a great idea.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I hope you've gotten that out of your system. That's
and like, I will go back to it eventually. I totally will. It's just right now I needed to do something where it's like, okay, I'm going to play some Bloodborne because this I can actually progress in. Thank you.
No, fair enough. All right. Well, that's one angry person, hopefully a little less angry. Let's move on to the next one. Sky, you're also going to piss a lot of people off, but see, this one I'm okay with. So you go right ahead and tell us your game that failed in its execution.
Final Fantasy VII.
My childhood, it hurts.
I know. So many people love this game. And it had tons of potential. Like, I'm not blind to that fact. There's some good environmental themes going on there. Various characters had potential and were interesting. But it's just such an exercise in frustration. The maps are designed so poorly that you often can't tell where to go without actual, like, arrow markers. That's just bad area design. Not to mention, I mean, the obvious, hideous, non-combat character models, especially since the combat character models were perfectly fine. I don't know why they're different. Why they would even do that, I don't know.
It probably had something to do with the space limitations. Like, I'm not going to defend it in terms of, like, they were good character models. I'm just going to say, like, the game was already, like, 3 discs long, and that was unusual for the time.
Well, there's... it is and it isn't. I mean, there are plenty... there are plenty of games from that period that are multi-disc. It's more the fact that like they don't even I understand degrading the quality. I don't understand them being completely different. They're not even starting from the same base mark. Like you see in a lot of games that there's a difference, for example, between how the characters are modeled in cutscenes versus gameplay footage, right? Particularly the further back you go to the early days of cutscenes. But the fact that they look nothing alike is jarring. All the stupid mini games, the confusing mess that is the plot, the fact that the game is obviously rushed, the fact that almost no one, like, there's so little character development. Like, make me care about these people. The only person I gave a flying fuck about, they killed. Her death didn't make me sad, it made me angry. Because she was the only one I gave a crap about. It's just the game coming to it. Like I didn't play this as a kid. Like I played this well later down the line because I wasn't playing console games in the PS1 era. And everyone was like, "Oh, it's so amazing. You got to play this. You got to play this." I'm like, "Okay, I'll play it." And I got a copy and I was just like, "What is this?" Like this isn't fun. And I really do people think that people look back at it with rose-colored glasses. Don't get me wrong, despite coming to gaming so late, I have played a fair amount of retro stuff. Final Fantasy VI is one of my favorite games of all time. I'm currently playing through Phantasy Star right now. The first one. It's not its age. It's the fact that it is a rushed mess that didn't deliver on its potential. This is one of the reasons why I think the remake. I'm glad to see the remakes happening, and I hope it's good. I honestly do, because maybe it will make the flaws in the original all the more obvious. I do think gamers tend to look back at things with rose-colored glasses all the time, and Final Fantasy VII is probably the biggest example of it. And it's okay to like it. Like, I'm not saying don't like the game, but I
It's even
mean,
okay to love it like Irene does.
yes, that's fine. But recognize that it's not perfect. It has flaws. You can like things and they can have flaws. These things are not exclusive. We can criticize the things we love. I have done so on this show.
As
You may remember the time Irene thought I was being abducted by aliens, right? Right.
mm-hmm.
So I understand the appeal of nostalgia, but look back at it honestly. Look back at it in the context of even of its own time, where there are games that are better put together and look a lot nicer and have a plot that isn't a confusing mess, and maybe we can get somewhere.
I think to a certain extent, like people who played it way back when, like I did, for a lot of people it might have been their first real RPG. It might have been their first like experience with the Final Fantasy series as a whole because of its ubiquitousness. So it does hold a special place in a lot of people's hearts. But yeah, I agree. It can be criticized for the fact that like it locks Omni Slash behind an unforgivable amount of mini games and
Mm-hmm.
some of the best summons behind the most boring chocobo breeding side quest you've ever seen. I'm also gonna put a put in a solid word for the it's something that Jim Sterling mentioned in the last few weeks, either on his podcasts or somewhere. He was replaying Final Fantasy VII for the Switch and mentioning that he feels now that the themes in it are very timely. They're anti-corporate, environmentalist, like anti-military, like very interesting for like for the now. So I think if it were to, once the remake does come out, it'll be very relevant for the era in which we are currently. So
Correct.
I'm interested to see if, I'm very interested to see that what they do with it, and I hope they don't try and soften those things, because like Shinra as an electric company with its own private fucking military is terrifying. Like, I didn't think about that when I was a kid. I'm like, oh yeah, Shinra are bad people. That's fine. As an adult, I'm like, they're an electric company. Why do they have a militia? Holy fuck! Where is the government?
Well, yeah, exactly. Like, there's some, thematically, there's some really interesting stuff going on in that game. But
And
it
like the
doesn't.
whole like, well, we're gonna destroy the environment in order to turn a quick profit, and Shinra just looking forever for basically a perpetual motion machine, essentially in the form of the Promised Land, in order to just keep selling their product indefinitely, which they know they're going to run out of, and maintain control. And that's actually super relevant as well. Rather than diversify and figure out new ways in order to deliver the same service, Shinra's just doubling down on this impossible dream of oil forever. I mean, live stream forever.
Uh-huh.
Freudian slip. Totally unintentional.
Yeah. All right. Well,
Anyway.
that's 2 bits of rage. We got one more before we wrap up today, and that's mine. Now, I don't think I'm going to piss off nearly as many people, because my selection is unfortunately a very obscure title, but it affected the execution here affected me so terribly, and we'll get into that. But my selection was a PS3 title called Lost Dimension. Now, what I'm going to get into, I'll just explain. Like, the actual failing here when the execution is that there was really very little quality assurance and bug testing done with this title. So let me paint the picture for you. So it's a strategy RPG with regular movement, similar to, say, Valkyria Chronicles, but not the same style. It's kind of live movement. Basically, a supervillain appears and takes over a building, turns it into his own personal lair, tower, whatever you want to call it. So the government sends in a team of psychics to scale the tower and deal with him. It's a very cookie cutter story. I know it's not anything fancy or spectacular, but each psychic specialized into something different. One could fly and use telekinesis. One was a pyrokinetic. One was an augmenter who could, improve stats, that kind of thing. So they were very balanced as a team, which was really cool. Now, the big story twist is when you get to the building, you find out that one of the members of your team is a traitor. And in order for you to go to the next floor in the building, you all have to vote on one member that has to die. And the thing is that at the end of each fight, you get these whispers from everyone's mind, your main protagonist, and you have to guess who the traitor is by talking to everybody and things like that. So you basically have to kill the traitor. But the thing is that on the next floor, there's another traitor. And so your team just whittles itself down until it's a small, finite amount of people for this final boss. Now, when somebody dies, their psychic essence can be equipped to another player, giving them access to their abilities, which I think is really cool because it doesn't limit the things you can do. It just condenses it down into this build that you want to create for yourself, which was really awesome. But you have this whole survivor system where you have to vote someone off the island every time you get to the end of the story. And it was phenomenal. I thought it was great. I loved the game to death. I really wanted to get to the ending, but I didn't because there was no bug testing. So one of the issues that would happen is in the same map, in order to progress, or it might have been just for grinding purposes, if one specific character was not a traitor by that point, and you used him, which at that point you had to, and he was really awesome. He was a speedy character. I really liked him. The game would just freeze up. Same spot, same round, whole nine. And from what I was able to determine online, it was because of this one character. if he was out of the picture, then that's a whole nother story. And the traders are randomized throughout each playthrough, so it's never the same person twice. So there was a lot of variation, a lot of replayability for the game. But like this bug just kept me from progressing. I tried it 7, 8 times. At the end of it, it was just like I really want to keep loving this game. I kept looking. I was looking online. I was trying to see if anyone found fixes for it. There was no way to do it. I know it was released for PC. Maybe somebody fixed those bugs with a mod. Like I don't know, but at least from the PS3 standpoint, and potentially from the Vita version as well, from what I was able to understand, it looks like that
Yeah,
this was fairly game breaking.
the thing about the Vita version, if I remember correctly, it had different very severe bugs, not the same ones.
Oh, okay.
Honestly, it was really, really bad. I'm looking into the PC version now. I haven't found
I mean,
anything yet, but
yeah, the
I
game's
to
come and gone.
confirm if the bugs have been fixed or not, but I'm gonna keep looking and hopefully.
Yeah, but like I really wanted to keep going with this game. Like this is one of those rare instances where I wanted to get the platinum trophy. I would have played it, I would have overplayed it, I would have gotten that trophy. But like this made it impossible for me to do. Like I was so distraught about this game that I actually tried emailing Furyu, the the development team, to report these issues, but never heard about anything, never saw a fix. Like I really wanted this to be fixed because I really wanted to keep enjoying the game, and I couldn't do it. It was such a disappointment, and I sulked on that one for months.
You did.
Yeah, like you were there.
I was there.
You were enjoying while I was playing it too. Like you saw it. It was like
I
just
would have
such a neat game.
I would have loved to have played it myself. I mean, obviously strat stuff is my thing, right?
I was looking at it as well until Rafe told me that, like, yeah, there's a game breaking bug at the end, which means I can't recommend it to you.
Yeah, I really wanted to recommend this game, and I was trying to recommend it. And while it was fine before I discovered the bug, I was recommending it to people. It was awesome, but I just couldn't keep doing it. It was just that upsetting to me that like something so great was ruined for me.
I think probably the worst part of it was that it seemed like, as much as this bug is game breaking, it's like the developer either didn't have the resources, which, sad, or the desire to patch such an obviously disastrous flaw in their game. And I'm only going to assume that it was probably they didn't have any budget left, or the team had moved on, or some other internal, like, organizational constraint, rather than a lack of caring.
I can only hope that that's the case because
I'm going to be generous here and say, like, they probably didn't want to come out and say, hey, we have no money to patch our game anymore. Sorry, we have no, the teams, like, they didn't necessarily want to come out and have a press release and say, like, hey, our game has a really glaring flaw in it, but buy it anyway, even though we have no money to patch it.
it was much later that they did a PC release for the game too. So like they still pushed the game knowing that this was a thing. So I can't imagine that there wasn't some malevolence behind it.
Yeah,
Which,
the PC version came out 2 years later.
yeah. And yeah, so
I'd have
that
to look into see if whether the bug's still present in the PC version before I would make a judgment call. But yeah, I get what you're saying there. Is that it's like, oh yay, they actually, it's like it's kind of like Skyrim. It's still broken every time they re-release it,
yeah.
but they keep re-releasing it.
But like I said in the intro, like this is the kind of thing that makes me leery about other products from the same developer. Like every time a new Furyu title is released, oh, it looks good. I'm still not pre-ordering it or buying it until I know what kind of bugs might show up in the game. I just can't do it. They soured me on this one experience, and it stung. It did. I know it's not a mainstream title, but at the same time, I loved it, and I would have considered it one of my favorite games. But
I will say that the PC version seems to be very well reviewed. So I'm not finding specifics yet, but we shall see.
okay.
I mean, it's possible that they managed to fix it with the PC version and just never went back to patch the PS3 version, but even so, that seems kind of sad.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm lucky in a way. Sekiro hasn't soured me on all FromSoft games forever. I'm just perhaps more cautious now if From decides to do something outside of like the traditional Bloodborne or Dark Souls mold. And it's not necessarily saying like they shouldn't. They should totally feel free to stretch their legs and make whatever game they want. I'm just saying that for me, I'm going to pay attention to those a little. Like honestly, I'm like, yeah, it's a FromSoft game. It's going to be hard. I'm okay with this, and like dove in, kind of like writing off how difficult people were saying it was. Like, I sort of just was like, yeah, people are saying it's hard. The same controversy gets raised every time there's a new Dark Souls game. I know where I sit on this. I think I should be okay, and I think I underestimated how different it was in terms of the gameplay this time versus previous entries.
All right. Well, on that note, we have gotten 2 rage points and one, while ragey, bit more depressing than anything else. Kind of just opened up an old wound on that one for me. But that's about what we've got for this week. So I hope everyone feels a little bit better getting some of that out of their system. Yeah, so if there's ever any games that you guys have played that kind of failed in their execution, let us know about them on Twitter. You can find me at Billionaires XP. You can also find me on Twitch at Rafe Thegrim, all one word, and I'll be streaming typically on Wednesday nights. Sky, where can everyone find you?
I'm at Skyknight XP, both on Twitter and Twitch. I stream on Tuesday evenings at 7 p.m. EST.
Awesome. And Irene, where are you at?
I'm at irogue_XP on Twitch, and I'm normally Twitter, and irogue_XP on Twitch as well. I stream on Thursday nights.
And also, I should also point out something that I haven't brought up before. Because the three of us are very varied gamers, our podcast focuses primarily on RPGs, but just note that that's not what our streams are typically about. While I tend to play a lot of them, you'll see any different type of thing on our streams. So I just wanted to make sure you guys knew that we aren't just an RPG group. You'll see a lot of different things on our streams, on our WordPress site as well. So xpbillionaires.wordpress.com. So when we're talking about different things, if we have any more articles that we want to put up, they may not necessarily just be about RPGs.
And thank you to Hannah
Yeah,
Bard
like,
for
Until
handling
Dawn
our
is-
transcriptions.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
our lovely little XP hobo.
Yes. We'll have that
They are the best.
shortly after release. So keep looking forward to that. And again, if you're enjoying us, please send us a donation through Ko-fi. So that's coffee.com/xpbillionaires. All right, guys, that is it for us. We will see you next week. Just keep gaming for us. Take care now.
Bye-bye.